I understand what you're saying, Mr. Nelson, but my question to you is, since you've been in prison, have you thought what it would be like for a little 9-year-old girl to have gone through what this little girl says she went through?
Yeah, I thought about it, but I'm sorry it all happened.
Well, what is it you're sorry that happened? That you got convicted and came to prison, or something happened to this little girl?
Yeah, I got convicted and came to prison.
We are about to watch the commutation hearing of a man who did the worst to a child in 1995 and received a life sentence. Now he's trying to get out early, yet his strategy of saying that it never happens doesn't seem like a winning one. Let's jump in.
Yep.
All right. Would you answer Mr. Marabella's questions? Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Nelson. How are you, sir?
All right.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Mr. Nelson, how old are you, sir?
66,
How long have you been in prison?
26.
Okay. Tell me what things you've learned while you've been in prison. What are some of the programs that have been most helpful for you?
Well, I've been going. When I first came, I went to all the churches. Then I stopped. Then when Cowboys of Christ came back, that's the only one I go to now.
Okay. I know you've had some trouble with your education. You've had trouble doing classes and things like that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What are some of the things how have you changed from the man that came to prison to the person you are today? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I do mostly puzzle books. When I ain't doing that,
Okay.
they took me out of the field because I'll do most of the roles by myself. I told them I was losing blood. They're going to tell me, keep on working. They wouldn't let me rest, get no water, nothing. So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
last time I fell out, they took me to the hospital. They sent me to New Orleans. When I come from the hospital, they put me back in the field. They turned around, took me out the field, and gave me a yard orderly job. And that's all I've been doing.
So you have some medical issues?
Every now and then, they'll bring me back and forth to the hospital. We'll take blood tests, check, see how high the fever is, if I have blood pressure. I had a small blood clot. They gave me medicine to get rid of that.
Mr. Nelson, why are you in prison now?
I took this girl and her young daughter in off the street.
Well, I understand that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's a good charity thing to do. That's not why people go to prison. Why are you in prison because of that?
They accused me of raping the little girl, which I never did.
Okay. Now, I'm a little confused. Did someone help you prepare your application?
Yeah, I had an inmate help me to fill it out, because he knows the law.
Now, okay, and I read your application, and all through your application, and all along, you have said you didn't do this. You went to trial. The jury found you guilty, even though you said you didn't do this. Okay. Now, in your application, you say, I'm very remorseful for what I did. Do you understand what that means?
That I'd be sorry for everything that happened.
Okay, well, what are you sorry for?
that it happened, that it ain't
Well, what
gonna happen again.
I
That I was
understand, but what are you sorry? What happened that you're sorry for?
for taking them in. And that I was accused of rape, which I didn't do.
Okay. Now, while you've been in prison, and let me say this, I understand, and you have every right to protest your innocence. Although a jury has found you guilty, under our law, you're guilty because a jury has found you guilty. And when you're convicted of a crime such as aggravated rape, you're required, before we can give you any relief, to take sex offender programs. But you have refused to do that. Why have you refused to take any sex offender programs?
I never refused to take them. They never gave them to me.
Okay.
When I was taking the 100-hour class, after they gave me the certificate for that, to celebrate recovery, I had a certificate for Teal Walker. The other certificates, I can't remember the name. And that was it. They never signed me for no other thing.
You don't recall ever refusing to take sex offender treatment?
No.
Would you be willing to take it if it's offered to you?
Yep.
But you haven't taken it yet.
Nope.
While you've been in prison, have you given any thought to what this little girl may have gone through? Because this little girl, according to the police reports, believes that you did something to her. Have you thought about what effect that had on a little 9-year-old girl?
Yep. But
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
well, at first, when I took them in, the 9-year-old girl, she ain't had no problem with me being around. I never touched her. But I had to go with her and her mama to take her to school. The school teacher thought I was the daddy. Told her no. I said they got put out on the street. I took them in. I bought new school supply, new clothes, new everything. Little girl mama wrote the size and everything down. We went shopping. I bought everything, paid for it. I had the receipts. I had the receipt for everything I bought. I paid on their life insurance because I stayed by myself. And I took them in off the street.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Nelson, but my question to you is, since you've been in prison, have you thought what it would be like for a little 9-year-old girl to have gone through what this little girl says she went through?
Yeah, I thought about it, but I'm sorry it all happened.
Well, what is it you're sorry that happened? That you got convicted and came to prison, or something happened to this little girl?
Yeah, I got convicted and came to prison.
So you're not sorry that something might have happened to this little girl?
Yeah, I'm sorry that something happened, but what I'm trying to say, I never touched the little girl. But the little girl lied and said, I did it, which I didn't. The little girl mama was right there and told everybody I never touched her. But the little girl, she broke down and told my niece, she lied and said, I did this, I didn't do this, which I never touched her. I took them in off the street because I didn't want I didn't like seeing nobody out on the street. I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't brought up that way. When I took them in, I paid the
Mr. Nelson, did you ever use drugs or alcohol back then?
Nope.
Did you ever drink?
Cold drinks, juice, milk,
I'm talking about alcohol.
no wine.
Whiskey, vodka, beer.
Nope. Nope. Don't drink beer.
Ever smoked dope? Ever did drugs or anything?
No drugs, no dope, or any kind.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. That's all the questions that I have.
All right, Mr. Nelson, I don't see any other questions, so we'd like to hear from Warden Falgood. We'll hear what he has to say about you.
He is currently a medium custody. He's had 5 DB write-ups. The last meeting in 2014. Since 2011, he has been at Camp D, basically in Falcon, between work lines, and then currently as a groundskeeper, as he stated.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
is there a statement you'd like to make to the board?
Well, I was hoping I'd be going home to go fishing.
You want to go fishing? Is that what you said?
That's all I've been doing since I've been on the street before I got locked up.
All right. Is the board prepared to vote? Mr. Marabella?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Nelson, it sounds like you're doing pretty well where you are in prison. I'm really going to encourage you to try to take sex offender class, try to take some victim awareness. I hear you say this little girl lied, but you know, that little girl went through some traumatic events, and you have every right to agree, continue to say that you didn't do anything to her. But under our law, you've been convicted. And it's important for you to understand what that conviction means and what you need to do. So I'm going to encourage you to try to enroll in the sex offender program, to try to take some classes on victim awareness, to try to figure out what this little girl was going through, and continue to do the things that you do. And if once you do that, apply again, and perhaps you'll get a different vote. But today, my vote is to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Mr. Wise?
At this time, I'm going to vote to deny for the reasons stated by Mr. Marabella. Thank you very much.
Ms. Jackson?
Likewise, I'm going to vote to deny. I think you need some more programming. I'm going to encourage you to take the sex offender treatment and the victim awareness. All right? So my vote today, though, is to deny.
Mr. Roche?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Nelson, my vote is the same, to deny your request based on the reasons articulated by Mr. Marabella.
All right, Mr. Nelson. So today you've received 4 votes to deny your application. So that's the outcome of today's proceeding, but I think everybody recommends that you do try to enroll in some classes. And if you have the opportunity to reapply once you've completed those classes. Good luck to you, sir. We wish you well.
Thank you.
Ms. Reynolds, I believe we're ready to adjourn.
All right, Warden Falgood, that concludes our business at Angola. We appreciate you accommodating us today. So we will adjourn at 11:40. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, guys.
Did you catch in the middle there when he started to talk about how he paid for the school equipment. He paid for their clothes. He had the receipts. He paid for their life insurance. And then I'm just like, full stop. Did you just say you paid for their life insurance? You took you took a homeless mother and daughter off the street and bought them life insurance? Let's go listen to that.
Because I stayed by myself, eyes and everything down. We went shopping. I bought everything, paid for it. I had the receipts. I had the receipt for everything I bought. I paid on a life insurance.
Okay. He said it. I paid for their life insurance. And I don't know what Mr. Maribella's face was there at the end, either where he was caught off guard like I was, or if he just thought, okay, the guy is just, I don't know if he caught it or how he felt about it. But for me, I picked up on it, and I felt that was a nefarious, something not good was going to happen, and they may have been very lucky they got out of it. That's just my opinion. What do you think? But this hearing, it was bizarre in so many ways, how he just seems so nonchalant. He's kind of smiling and giggling like a teenager. I mean, he's nearing 70 years old. He's still locked up. They moved him from Angola to Elon Hunt. But all he had to do was take those programs and answer the questions just half correctly, and probably would have been granted. To get a life sentence for this type of crime, that's rare. 1995, we don't see that. Every once in a while we see it, but we see people who've done the same things that are serving just 8-year sentences. So, I wish that we had more information on this case, but probably because he did an appeal, we don't have it. All he wants to do is go fishing. Well, sir, you're not going to be able to go fishing if you don't take your programs, because we know a program would cure it all. But insisting on his innocence, it's just not believable. I know I'm just basing that off of one hearing. I'm basing that off of, right? But I think we've seen enough of these to know that you gotta err on the side of the 9-year-old girl. Now, he will be able to reapply. We can go over real quick the eligibility for clemency consideration. Remember, this wasn't a pardon. This wasn't a parole hearing. It was a clemency. That's why they had the many board members. But an executive pardon should not be considered for an offender while in prison except when exceptional circumstances exist. An incarcerated offender who is serving a sentence for non-violent or non-sex offense may request commutation sentence at any time and must have a disciplinary report free period for at least 24 months prior to the date of application at the time of the hearing. But you say, what? Well, that's a non-sex offense. Aha, but they do talk about that. Must not be classified to maximum custody status at the time of the application or at the time of the hearing, if the hearing is granted, and must possess a marketable job, either through previous employment history or through successful completion of vocational training if incarcerated. And this is an interesting clause, because I'd argue that we don't see that necessarily in many commutation hearing cases, or upon written recommendation on the trial officials. This includes a statement by the penalty that now appears excessive, recommendation of a definite, okay. An incarcerated offender who is not serving a life sentence, but who is serving a sentence of violent offenses or sex offenses as defined, may request a commutation of sentence after serving a minimum of 10 years and must have been be disciplinary free for a period of 24 months prior to the date of the application or at the time of the hearing. So this is interesting. So C, this is where it's saying if you're not serving a life sentence for the sexual offense, you can apply for the commutation hearing. And I actually don't know for certain if he has a life sentence. What's interesting about this hearing, they just kind of screwed up on the process, is they did not say how long he was in for. I know I skipped through the beginning for you on this, but they didn't do it in the real official hearing. So it is certainly possible that he didn't have a life sentence. Maybe he had a 50-year or 60-year sentence or something like that. But it does make me wonder where they come up with these things. It's like, well, if you've done something terrible, you only need to serve 10 years. And also, um, right? Like, so the most horrible crimes, 10 years, you can apply for it. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I skipped the gun. D, life sentences. An offender sentenced to life may not apply until he has served 15 years from the date of sentence, unless he has sufficient evidence that he would be caused him to be found not guilty. So maybe he does have a life sentence, but either way. And then they have a two-stage process. So the pardon board utilizes a two-stage process for commutation review. The first is qualification review. During the stage one qualification review, the pardon board will conduct a review to determine the application has merit and should be passed to stage two, the commutation hearing. For further investigation and consideration of the sentence commutation at stage one, the applicant does not appear before the board is review the application. And the offender shall be assessed a fee in the amount of $150 payable to the Department of Safety and Corrections. And one might argue for some of these inmates that could be quite a lot of money, right? It's interesting that they do charge that, but I guess they want to create a big enough barrier where it's significant to an inmate. I mean, when you're getting paid, like, I don't know, what does an inmate these days get paid? Well, we just found out Google's a wonderful thing. In Louisiana, there were more than 27,000 people imprisoned at the end of October 22nd. And the ACLU found that incarcerated people in Louisiana prisons earn up to 2 cents to 40 cents an hour. 2 cents to 40 cents an hour. Costs inside the prisons can be high by comparison, with the visit to the prison doctor costing $3. They have to pay to visit the doctor? Holy cow, I did not know that. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, so routine sick checkups cost inmates a 1 penny copay, while emergency visits cost $2. Fees are waived if they have less than $250 in their account. That's interesting. So you got to work a heck of a lot of hours to apply. So that is interesting, and I think that's notable. But he was denied, and this hearing took place in 2021. It's now, like 3 years later. If we do see him again, I'll post it here in the return of. There's a playlist called Return of, and that's where you can see when inmates come back a second or third time. Thank you, Richard, for dropping in what information you had on this. And with that, I'll let you.
because I stayed by myself, eyes and everything down. We went shopping. I bought everything, paid for it. I had the receipts. I had the receipt for everything I bought. I paid on a life insurance.